In value terms, in adoption terms, we're still at the very beginning. And we might still be saying we're at the starting point when it's at 1 million. Bitcoin's a tool to be able to free up more time. The ultimate goal is to make governments smaller. You've lost 21% over the last 5 years in purchasing power.
Why do you think more people don't realize this?
Michael Saylor been using that fiat system that he realizes is broken to his advantage on, I can accumulate more Bitcoin for my business here. Family now getting into it, and whether or not they're front running the US accumulating it or not, I don't know. There's a lot more businesses in the UK that hold Bitcoin already, but they just don't talk about it. If you want to educate someone on Bitcoin, don't talk about Bitcoin first.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Jordan Walker to the podcast. Jordan is the founder of the Bitcoin Collective, where he makes Bitcoin simple through his YouTube channel, podcast, and newsletter. And he helps businesses understand Bitcoin. Welcome to the Bitcoin Edge, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Yeah, it's good to meet you and to hear about what you're up to on the other side of the pond. Before we get there, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you at such a young age to Bitcoin.
Yeah, so my journey really started with cryptocurrency as a whole. And I think a lot of people come in through that way, and as number go up as well, and not really understanding it, what this was, but wanting to learn more and actually not ignoring it, like coming into it and learning. So 2017, I want to say, I was in the cryptocurrency space. And then there was a big crash early 2018, but I hadn't done any research. So I just kind of left it. And then 2020, it was me and my brother-in-law. We were always messaging each other about Bitcoin and crypto at that point in the early 2020. And always messaging each other. It was like, oh, we're really interested in this and like wanting to learn more. He wanted to start a YouTube channel. I wanted to start a podcast. And we were like, why don't we just do this together? And actually learn together, but learn from the guests. So get on expert guests and essentially document our journey. So it's quite cool. With our podcasts, you can see our journey going through cryptocurrency. Some of it might be quite cringe. And then slowly, as we get more guests on, like in the early days, we managed to get Larry Lepard, Jeff Booth, Nat Brunel, James Lavish, Greg Foss as well. So they were the 5 instrumental people that then we realized, okay, why are we talking about all of these other cryptocurrencies? And it really sent us down that rabbit hole of learning about Bitcoin, what it was. And then we were like, okay, well, it's Bitcoin. Let's shift everything. And it's like, let's focus on Bitcoin. And like, we realized the importance of it. And then we were always talking about America. It was because I'm from the UK, or I'm from Scotland. And we were always talking about America. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're a lot further ahead than us. And we said on the podcast, there is a podcast out there where we're just like, should we run a Bitcoin conference in the UK? And we just kind of said it together on the episode, and we put it out there, and some sponsors came back to us and said, if you do this, we will back you. We put it out to those 5 people that I mentioned that we'd had on the podcast, like Jeff, Larry. And we said, if we did it, would you come? And they said, yeah, they will come and they will charge us nothing. And that was huge for us, especially when Bitcoin is, it was $16,000 at that point. So that kind of snowballed into the Bitcoin Collective and being put on the UK's first major Bitcoin conference. And that's kind of what got me into it and my journey into Bitcoin. As you said, like I'm 28, so I'd been at university, I'd been working in startups, doing marketing, and then we decided to start a podcast. And I just went down this education rabbit hole of learning about macroeconomics, learning about Bitcoin. And yeah, that has ended me up here, the founder of the Bitcoin Collective.
So your own podcast orange pilled you.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of how we set it out to be, of we are not coming saying that we are the professionals and the experts in anything. It's we're dumb and we're getting on the experts to come and talk to us. And it really helped us like learn. And you're always on that learning journey. You're never going to be an expert. And especially you're never going to be an expert in Bitcoin. It's always evolving.
Yeah. That's amazing because actually, one of the reasons I found you and wanted you to be on because I saw you interviewed Jeff Booth and I thought it was a really good interview. And I'm just wondering, that was probably the second interview or third, I don't know. But what did you learn from Jeff this time?
Yeah, so I've got to know Jeff over the years, and I'd class him as a friend because I can drop him an email and ask him for feedback on different things, and he's very giving with his time. Even though people don't see him as much at the moment out in the public, like he does a lot behind the scenes. So yeah, that I think that was maybe the third podcast I'd done with him, and then he was at our conference as well. And I tried to make that episode a little bit different, I think, because it can, when you've got people that are advocating for Bitcoin so much and on so many podcasts, I try and make it a little bit different. So it's not just the same thing over and over again. So I dug into his backstory, and because I like building things, building businesses, and he's really good at that. So I wanted to learn some of that from him. So it was less about Bitcoin, more about building and being an entrepreneur and his backstory. How did he get to Bitcoin? And yeah, that was it was a great episode. And what I found out was, because it was a few months ago, what I found out, I think he said that he was writing another book. So I'm still waiting for that, and I think it'll just be as good as his first one, knowing him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably why we don't see him. And I know he helped somebody else in the Bitcoin space write a book about the spiritual side of Bitcoin. So you're right, he does a lot in the background. And now you're getting really active. And I saw on X you posted something that said the British pound has lost 95% of its purchasing power since 1970. Why do you think more people don't realize this?
Yeah, it's why do I think people don't realize this? It's just a thing that uh, we don't really get taught, and we're not taught at school around money and the currency that we use, which is it's quite strange that we don't get taught these kind of things, especially when there's a clear problem with it. Like the currency is going down 95% in 55 years. If you then, people might say that, oh, well, 55 years is a long time. So what I did next was, so that image that you're talking about that I put out was part of a deck that I made. So a slide deck um, that helps businesses understand Bitcoin and holding cash on your balance sheet, what happens to it. So I created that image, and then I was like, okay, well, 55 years is a long time for people to think about, especially when you're not in Bitcoin, when you've got that high time preference. So the next slide is from 2020 to 2025, and it's 21% the pound has lost in that time. So once you put that into their terms of you've got X amount, say you've got $10,000, £10,000 on your balance sheet, then you're going to be losing you've lost 21% over the last 5 years in purchasing power. And that really makes it click for people, is bringing it in such a short space of time, because 21% loss of purchasing power in 5 years is really scary. And I think I put that, like, how scary this actually is. And people are just not aware of it. And that's what we're trying to do, is just make people aware of the problem rather than here's Bitcoin. It's more, okay, well, you need to understand what's wrong first. And then, only then, can you see the value in what Bitcoin actually is. There's no point screaming and shouting about Bitcoin to, well, this deck is aimed at business owners and entrepreneurs. There's no point in screaming and shouting about Bitcoin to them if they don't see a problem yet. So that's why I create slides like that. And it's a wake up call for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We do have to understand the problem. And you recently wrote an open letter to the UK government. And in it, you say Bitcoin is not just another cryptocurrency, it's a technological breakthrough akin to the internet or the printing press. Tell us about this letter and why you wrote it.
So this was on a Sunday afternoon. Is I just got frustrated. And I've done open letters before. So I done it once before to the Scottish government, and it got published by Bitcoin Magazine. And it got read by quite a few members in the government, because since then I've presented to them around Bitcoin and why I think that Scotland should open up their doors to the Bitcoin industry. Um, so it worked in a sense with the Scottish government. So then when I saw Rachel Reeves saying that the UK is potentially going to sell their Bitcoin, and this put me on like red alert, and I was like, okay, this shouldn't happen, because like I live in the UK, and this, even though people don't want governments to hold it, this hurts the people. And like that's what I was thinking about. It hurts the citizens by them selling it. So as on a Sunday, I just decided that, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to try it and see what happens. I'm very much in, some people will say that, oh, you'll get nowhere with it, but I'm very much in the camp of, I'll try anything. I will do something, and I'll just put it out there. And that's what I did. I wrote this open letter. I tried to construct it in a way that they would listen to it and they could take some things from it, and make it a little bit relatable. So I put some of like the institutional adoption in there, and then also like how revolutionary this technology is. But I didn't want to come across, as I said before, too in your face and scaring people away by it. So I tried to make it as open as possible, and that's what I want. The ultimate aim of it is to go into the government, the UK government, and run a roundtable. And what I would do is I've been in the space long enough that I know a lot of people that have expertise in so many different areas. So if I could get in the door and then also bring some of these experts in different areas to help educate on what Bitcoin is and why I believe selling it is a mistake. That was the aim of it, and it just came out of pure frustration. On a Sunday, I just spent my afternoon sitting down with my laptop and pushing this out. And what I did was I sent it to, I think it was 18 key members of parliament, so they got it by email. And I've just tried to push it out as widely as possible and hope that someone sees it. But we'll see. It's out there, and I'm hoping that someone might get back to me on it, because I'd love to run a round table and educate the government on why I believe selling Bitcoin would be a big mistake for them.
Hey there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me grow the channel. Want to sleep easy? Microseed lets you stamp your seed phrase onto a small steel washer. Buy the device once and use it forever. I love it. It's discreet, precise, and easy to transport. Get yours below. For powerful self-custody with no backdoors, I recommend the Trezor wallet. For peace of mind with collaborative custody, the Bitcoin Advisor is a trusted team who can also help with inheritance planning. Just scan the QR code or use the link below. And check out these super cool Satoshis with over 40 styles to choose from, plus 10% off with my link below. Now, back to the show. Well, it's an excellent letter and great way to spend your Sunday. I just think it's a little bit ironic, right? Because it's the governments that are printing money and causing the problem. And do you think one reason that they don't, that governments push back on this is because they benefit from the fiat system and they like the control it gives them?
100%. I would say yes, but they don't really know that. Like a lot of people, it's not. I'm in the camp of a lot of the time it's not malicious. It's just a lack of understanding of how the system actually works, and maybe not realizing that you're benefiting from it a lot more than others. I don't believe, or I like to think that a lot of it isn't malicious. The higher up you go and the closer maybe to the central bank, then maybe it is, and our regulator as well. There might be some of that and personal incentives and career incentives involved in that, unfortunately. And this is the whole reason why we shouldn't have humans involved in our money and have control over our money, because we've seen what happens. Greed happens, and we'll just print more to get us out of that situation. And then that puts that on to future generations. So it puts it on to my generation and the generations after me. And that's not what I want to see. Like we're now seeing in the news, us as people in Bitcoin, we know that there's likely going to be a pension problem later down the line. But now in the UK anyway, we're seeing this all over the news, is looking to raise the pension age. There might not be enough funds for future generations by 2050, I think it said. There's going to be a big problem. And this is something, as Bitcoiners, we realize this, and we've opted out of that, because we can already see that. But I think, going back to your question, is like people are just living within the system and they can't see outside of that. And I like to think that it's not malicious. They're just playing a game that's broken, and Bitcoiners have decided not to play that game anymore.
I really like that answer. You remind me, Jeff Booth says there is no they, only us, and that not all the actors are bad. Like you said, probably closer to the top, they are. But if you look at even the US government, Trump and his family just bought 2 billion in Bitcoin, because I think the bottom line is you can't stop Bitcoin. So you can keep profiting off the system, but you can't stop Bitcoin, so you still need it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing that, like the Trump family now getting into it, and whether or not they're front running the US accumulating it or not, I don't know. But then you've also got the likes of Michael Saylor over the past 5 years that has been using that fiat system that he realizes is broken, using that to his advantage on, I can accumulate more Bitcoin for my business here. So we're seeing people wake up that there's a problem, and now how do I accumulate as much Bitcoin as I possibly can whilst it's still very low? Because in value terms, in adoption terms, we're still at the very beginning.
What would you tell people who say they're too late to Bitcoin?
I get this a lot. And if you look at, I usually show them have you seen the chart by Jesse Myers, which shows the global assets at 1,000 trillion, and then Bitcoin, which is 2 trillion, and it's 0.2% of global assets. And if you then break it down into, give people like something relatable to think about, because it's really hard. Like, this is a new thing that people can't get their head around. It's like trying to imagine what the future will be like. Is really hard for people to actually think about. So if you can use something from the past, so I always use the internet, for example. So I will talk people through, like, the internet is a protocol, and if you look at like the adoption of that, what has happened over the years, over 30 years, because the internet actually only went public in 1993 from memory. and or not my from memory of learning, because I was not born. I was not born 93. And if you look at like how fast that has now changed the world, we are able to communicate. I would not know you if it wasn't for the internet. I wouldn't have friends on either side of the world, and that's changed in not a long period of time, just over 30 years. So if you look at the internet as a protocol, and you explain that Bitcoin is also a protocol, and the internet allowed us to transfer information globally around the world. And then you ask them around how would you transfer value around the world just as fast and just as cheap? And it's very difficult for people to answer that. They can say, I would get a £10 note or a $10 note, and you could put that into an envelope and I could send that to my friend in Australia. And it might take a week to get there, but then it arrives and they can't spend it because they would have to then exchange it for their currency, which then would come with a fee on top of that. And then you can also do a bank transfer, but these would take, I mean, I've had bank transfers internationally that have taken up to about 3 days. For me personally, anyway. I know they can take longer and I know they can be quicker as well. But then you've also got fees involved with them. So that's the easiest way to walk people through, I've found, is saying that we've got the internet, but now we've got a way to send value just as fast and just as cheap if you're looking at Bitcoin and the layers on top of it. Yeah, that's how I would talk people through it.
So the first step would be for people to put Bitcoin on their own balance sheet, on their own personal balance sheet, and do advocate for self custody rather than, the ETFs. Yes, Michael Saylor is doing it with MicroStrategy, and that's wonderful for his business, but you don't own your own Bitcoin that way.
Yeah. And this is just part of, I see it as just part of the evolution of Bitcoin. It now feels like it's at the early stages of maybe going mainstream over the next 5 to 10 years. Of course, institutions are going to want this. Of course, corporations are going to want this. And it's, in my opinion, that's a good thing because, I mean, Bitcoin is for everyone. And that really helps people see Bitcoin more, hear about Bitcoin more. Maybe their bank is offering it and they're just becoming more familiar with it. But then my worry is that then there's a lack of understanding of that Bitcoin isn't mine and it's an IOU essentially. So we come back to the same problem of the Bitcoin in the bank isn't mine, just like the fiat in the bank isn't mine. I think there's going to have to be a big learning curve after this point of adoption and the evolution of Bitcoin around the custody of your Bitcoin and people realizing I need to actually take responsibility of this because it's a big ask for people to go from no responsibility of their wealth by keeping it in the bank to full responsibility. Just thinking it in your practical life. People, your friends, your family, it's a big thing to go from, okay, now you need to have this seed phrase and you need to keep this safe. You can't keep it online. And going through these steps, it's a big thing for people to get their head around. So I see this as like a stepping stone, and there's going to have to be a lot of education around self-custody over the next few years. And then I think we will then move on to more Bitcoin as a medium of exchange because we're going through that phase of store of value at the moment. But then I believe Bitcoin will be more widely used as a medium of exchange and just that one global reserve currency.
Yeah, that is something that, according to Jeff, Bitcoin must become a medium of exchange to survive as a store of value. And I would just wanted to ask you, though, do you think that there is a chance, like many people say, that governments will come for your Bitcoin in the ETFs or in these other companies? Is that the risk that we face?
It's hard to say because at the same time, we are taking control away from governments by buying Bitcoin. because essentially we are not using their currency as much. Um, is there a chance that, I mean, there's always a chance, and they will try and defend their fiat currency as till the death. The ultimate goal is to make government smaller, in my eyes anyway, is to actually downsize the government, because it's got too big, because they've got control of the money and they can hit that big red button, as Joe Bryan would say. So yeah, there's always a risk, and I would definitely. This is where I want to like advocate for self custody and having Bitcoin, and actually your own custody of it. But I realize also that that is a learning journey as well. So as it goes more mainstream, I would like to think people in Bitcoin are going to be upping that custodial education as we're going forward, because it is going to become very important.
Yeah. On the one hand, it's very freeing to be your own bank and to be responsible, but it can be scary. I wonder if it just takes a certain type of person at first. And then as time goes on, like you mentioned, it's going to get easier to self custody.
I think as people get more familiar with Bitcoin as well, and Bitcoin, because it's still a scary thing for a lot of people, just Bitcoin in general, never mind holding it or custodying it. A lot of people are still very scared of it and don't understand it, know what it is. So it's all part of, yeah, the evolution of Bitcoin, but it's up to us, the people that understand it, to help steer what direction it goes in. The quote that always comes to me when we're talking about responsibility and that shift of responsibility from no responsibility to full responsibility is from a movie, the first Spider-Man, which his uncle is like, with great power comes great responsibility. And that always sticks with me because it's so true, and it applies to Bitcoin. You get an immense power, but you also have that responsibility there, to hold that, and yeah, and not give that responsibility up to a bank or anything like that.
Yeah, I love that. Great quote. So the next step is for businesses to hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And this is something that you're working on right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm in the UK, and I'm sure a lot of people will have seen on social media that the UK is one of the worst places at the moment for entrepreneurs and businesses exiting. I think it's, if not the worst in the world at the moment, but it's certainly in the top three. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but you can see it on social media. But then actually living in the UK, I experience it. Like, I've got friends, entrepreneurial friends, I've got business owners, entrepreneurs that I look up to leaving the UK. And it's really sad to see because they're going to places like Portugal or Dubai. I was like, well, do I want to leave? Should I move my business out of the UK? I've considered all of this. But I enjoy living in the UK. I like it. My family's here. My friends are here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. So I was seeing all this and then realizing that I have the cheat code, which is Bitcoin. And lots of businesses don't understand this yet, and business owners don't understand it yet. But they are the easiest ones to actually understand it and educate around it. Because if you think, business owners and entrepreneurs, they are risk takers. They are people that think outside the status quo. They're builders because they've already built a business, and they're critical thinkers because they like solving problems. They wouldn't have built a business otherwise. If you're putting all those together, like, they are the low hanging fruit for understanding Bitcoin. Because as soon as you say, like we opened this episode, as soon as you say that the pound has devalued or the purchasing power, you've lost 95% over the last 55 years. That's a problem right there, because a lot of businesses hold cash on their balance sheet for a long period of time. And if you give them a problem, they're like, okay, I understand now. What's the solutions to this? So I like building businesses and I like Bitcoin. So it went hand in hand on how do we help UK businesses actually understand what Bitcoin is and why someone would want to hold it on their balance sheet. And then it's really been accelerated what we're doing by the corporate Bitcoin treasury adoption, because that's almost like a marketing tool for us, because it's showcasing what public businesses are doing by accumulating Bitcoin around the world. And we're essentially just taking that model, that playbook, and applying that to private businesses by UK business owners, whether it's one person or we're working with like top tier sports teams as well. So it is a ranging from businesses. And this is where I want to spend my time, and this is where I do spend my time now, because we've realized that we've realized two things actually whilst we've been doing this. One is there's a lot more businesses in the UK that hold Bitcoin already, but they just don't talk about it. So once we came out and said, this is what we're doing, a lot of them reached out to us and was like, that's fantastic. I've been holding it for the last 5 years and I've just not told anyone. And then the second point is a lot of business owners didn't realize that you could hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet and want to find out how you actually go about doing that. So it's been really interesting. And there's a lot of businesses that are reaching out to us, and that's the advantage of me having the podcast, having the Twitter spaces, the newsletter, because at the moment we're just getting bombarded with inbound emails saying, I've got a business and I've got this cash I don't need for the long term. We're very profitable, we got good cash flow, and I didn't know that you could do this. So it's super interesting, and I love just talking to people that are like-minded, because all the businesses are completely different from each other. I think that's the beautiful thing about it, is they're not Bitcoin businesses. They are just normal day-to-day businesses, but then they're just either they are running a Bitcoin strategy and holding it on their balance sheet, or they're wanting to figure out, how do I do this? Is this right for me? And then you've got other things like accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. There's Bitcoin payroll coming down the line as well soon. So there's so many just interesting conversations that I'm having with people. And one example is a company that is headquartered in London, but they've got a lot of employees in Pakistan, and Pakistan is getting hit with between 20 to 30% inflation annually. And they were like, we want to educate the staff over there around what's happening with inflation, and then we want to be able to pay a percentage of their wages in Bitcoin if they want that. Because it helps them as a company to do this, but then it also helps their employees as well. So it's super interesting, the diversity of companies that are coming and wanting to talk to us now.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a new full-time job. You know,
Yeah.
I got sent a gift from somebody I interviewed, Pleb Goodies, and he started a company in the UK called Satoshus, and he sent me a pair of shoes with my Bitcoin logo, and he sells them now in the UK. And I was asking, well, can you accept Bitcoin payments? He wasn't sure about that, so I'm gonna send him towards you. But also,
Please do.
yeah, is it legal to have Bitcoin on the balance sheet in the UK?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like having another asset on your balance sheet. It's like having a property on your balance sheet, but it just goes down as an intangible asset. And yeah, it's legal, because holding Bitcoin in the UK, holding Bitcoin and holding it self custody as well, that is legal. But what they have banned, or the regulator has banned in the UK, is holding any of the Bitcoin spot ETFs. So nobody in the UK can get access to any of the spot Bitcoin ETFs, which is why you see, I would love to see the actual percentages of this, but because I don't think they're public, but I would imagine there is a large quantity of the UK that holds Bitcoin proxies like MicroStrategy and other Bitcoin treasury companies, because they're not allowed to buy any of the ETFs, because a lot of people hold a lot of their value in their pensions, their private pensions, so their SIPs, they're called, or their stocks and shares ISA, where that's essentially just a tax wrapper around any investment. So yeah, it's holding Bitcoin in your balance sheet. There's lots of companies doing it in the UK, but the only thing that's currently banned is getting access to any ETFs.
What other areas of your life have changed since you've gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Wow. Lots of areas of my life. It's taken over for a long period of time. It took over my life, and it was like everything that I was doing. And what it's really done to me, for me, is like just give me more time, I think, to actually like, because you're not in that rat race anymore. Like once you've opted out and you start buying Bitcoin and you start holding Bitcoin, you're then saying, no, I don't want to be in that rat race of having no time, constantly chasing money. I see it with a lot of people that are my age, and they're just making ends meet with their mortgage. They're delaying having kids. Maybe they're having to move home because they can't afford to get on the property ladder. And it's just a constant rat race. Like their wages aren't going up as much as inflation. Not that they don't know that. Like a lot of people don't realize that. For one thing for me, it's given me time to sit back, actually look at what the real problem is. Yeah, and work on something that I'm passionate about. I think it's allowed me to do that. But it's quite weird that the thing that's allowed me to work on my passion is actually Bitcoin. So then I can help Bitcoin by educating more people about it. So it's a nice flywheel. And this is what I want. This is why I'm like educating businesses, because it is a cheat code. And once you understand it, it gives you more time. And then you can actually teach other people about it. And it just frees that up. So yeah, I would say that's how it's mostly changed my life. And the big thing for me is like finding that, I don't know if you feel the same, but just like finding that passion, because I think a lot of people spend a lot of time searching for that, but it feels like we found it and it's something we're passionate about. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that. I'd be interested to fire that one back at you.
Yeah, for sure. It changed for me. I was in real estate. I am in real estate. And I shared yesterday that I went in because I wanted to make more money. I was in fitness before that, which I was very passionate about, but not keeping up with, like you mentioned, the inflation and everything. So I went into real estate, not my passion, because I wanted to make more money. And although I do enjoy some parts of it, I can see that now looking back why I did it. And then I found Bitcoin and started putting my time and energy into Bitcoin. And then I realized my time and energy is valuable. Time is our most valuable resource. And we've kind of been told this lie that you just need to go out and make money. Not really. People say follow your purpose, your passion, but you also have to make money. So I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, are going towards what they don't love, and because of the way the system is set up. Whereas Bitcoin, exactly what you said, allows us to pursue what we love, and that gives us more freedom and more happiness.
Yeah, 100%. It does. Like, and I see this. This is a common trend. It's not just, I don't see it just in me and in you. It's like you see it, a lot of people now moving more towards in the direction of what they're passionate about, because maybe has allowed that to happen. And yeah, it's just a really nice thing to see because when you step out of the Bitcoin space and the Bitcoin community, it feels very doom and gloom and like very pessimistic. Whereas I think a lot of the Bitcoin community are very optimistic and think that the future is going to be, yeah, future is going to be great, which I believe it is. But when you're living still in that old system, it's hard to actually see that because you can't see any other way out of it because it's just constantly on a decline. Whereas once you step out of that and realize that maybe there is another way, you become very optimistic about the future.
Do you think it'll take longer for the people doing really well to see Bitcoin because they are profiting in the fiat world?
Potentially. It depends what their incentives are, I guess. Because, yeah, that's a tricky one. There will be some, and I think it comes down to the individual of like how open minded they actually are and how adaptable they are as well. Because lots of people get comfort just being in the status quo. But as I said, I think like business owners, entrepreneurs, ones who think outside of the status quo, I think they will be the ones that understand it first. And I think we're getting to that point where Bitcoin's getting taken a little bit more seriously now because it's felt over the last years that it's just been we're the crazy ones. And now it feels like, okay, well, people will actually have a conversation with you about it and hear you out. They might not agree with you, but they will actually hear your side of the argument. Whereas before it was just like the rebuttals were just, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's bad for the environment, all of these. But now it feels like that's kind of fading out a little bit more. As the credibility, as it becomes more credible in people's eyes, like it's already been credible in our eyes because we've taken the time to understand it. Whereas a lot of people need to build that trust through other sources and without doing that research. So through institutions that they see as credible, you've got, I mean, the likes of BlackRock, that's a big one. A lot of people see that as a credible source. They are arguably maybe not, but a lot of people view them because they are the largest asset manager in the world, view them as a credible source. So then they see, oh, if they're then getting into it, then oh, maybe there might be something there. They must have done their due diligence on this. So yeah, I think we're seeing more people come to it because of that credibility. It's just becoming more and more. It's still like the very starting point, I feel like. And it's, for many people, it's hard to get their head around because the price is at $120,000. But we will be looking back on this in years to come when it's a couple million and saying, oh, yeah, we were just at the start. And we might still be saying we're at the starting point when it's at 1 million.
Yeah, because at 1 million, it could be a 10% adoption, right? But the price does bring a lot of people in. And how do you handle that when you are telling people or businesses about Bitcoin? If it was around, let's say, 150 in the cycle or 200, would you educate them about the cycle, the potential cycle?
Yeah, that's important. Because you need to first make sure that they understand that this is a long term thing. It doesn't really matter what it does in 1 year, 2 years. It's 4 years plus is what you should realistically be looking at. And once you get to that length, you realize it's actually 10 years I should be oh, maybe it's 20 years I should be looking. So it's getting to that first 4 years for people to understand. And it's really important to educate people and businesses on the 4 year cycles because nobody knows how that's going to continue. But people need to understand what the Bitcoin halving is, the supply of Bitcoin, and the fact that if someone starts buying it when it's $150,000 and then it crashes down to $90,000, that was their first purchase. Like that's a scary moment for many people if you don't understand what you've actually bought. So that's why we just concentrate on the education side of things and making sure people understand fully what actually it is. Yeah, that's a really, really important thing to understand. And we try not to concentrate too much on price. I famously just don't. I try and shy away from it. Like our newsletter every week, I never mention the price. It's all about the adoption of Bitcoin, what's actually happening in the space. But I realize for new people coming in, they need to understand like why the price goes up and then why it comes down and corrects and why we've seen this pattern. Because once you understand that, it's been very predictable what's happened in the past with Bitcoin. I'm not saying that would happen in the future, but it's realizing that, okay, every 4 years there is this event that happens that has the supply coming in. So yeah, it's a big part of the education curve.
And you mentioned you also work with Joe Bryan on educating people.
Yeah, Joe is an advisor to the Bitcoin Collective. So yeah, his video has been it's just blown up and gone viral. What's the problem? So yeah, it's a great starting point for people to understand what I was saying is like learning about what that problem is first, and then you can look at Bitcoin. It's super important to actually do that first, because I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin space go straight in with Bitcoin and straight in with like there's 21 million and the halving supply. Like if you're new to Bitcoin, you don't care about that. Like the 21 million doesn't mean anything because you don't realize that, oh, there's unlimited fiat. You don't know that yet. So going in with 21 million, that is irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. So it's just realizing that if you want to educate someone on Bitcoin, don't talk about Bitcoin first. Talk about what the problem is first.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I love being reminded of that. So, for our last question, Jordan, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is there's multiple different ways that I kind of look at it, but it comes back more to time than Bitcoin. For me, is like freedom is I can spend my time how I want to spend it, and it's kind of how we've talked about through this whole episode. Is like to me that's the most valuable thing, and like if I can use something that gives me more time, which is Bitcoin, then that's what I'm doing. Like Bitcoin's a tool to be able to free up more time. So that's my idea of freedom is spend it how I want to spend it, whether that's with family, but then also advocating for this tool to then help other people realize that you can be free, not just constantly in the rat race and chasing that with your wage increase, chasing that house, whatever it is. That's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, and just to comment, I love that Bitcoin is a tool to free up more time to live your purpose because you obviously figured out that that gives your life meaning.
Yeah, yeah, and you can spend it how you want to spend it, rather than because I don't subscribe to the whole you work until you're 76, I think it is now, or they're going to increase it. Um, Work until then and then you're supposed to enjoy life. That doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather enjoy life whilst I can. And I think like telling other people about this thing that can help you do that, give you more time to actually spend it how you want to spend it. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I love that. Tell us where people can find you, Jordan.
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm more active on X and I'm also very active on LinkedIn because X is inside the Bitcoin echo chamber and then LinkedIn is outside. So I try and be in both worlds. But you can get me on there, just Jordan Walker, and then you can go and look at our website, which is bitcoincollective.com. And if you are a business in the UK as well and you want to look into Bitcoin strategy, then either just message me on any of the socials or just email us. We've got a form on our website that you can fill out.
Well, thank you. I hope you get lots of new business.
Thank you so much for having me on.